Shalom Aleichem, this is Rabbi Kovacs, and Mishnah Yomi continues for Erev Shabbat Vayetze. We're in chapter 9 of Yevamot, the second Mishnah. Now recall yesterday we began this chapter, the ninth parak, Yesh Motorot, saying that there are situations where the original marriage was allowed, but a yibum would not be allowed, and vice versa. And there are also situations where even the original marriage was not really allowed, and yibum would not really be allowed. Now, as a reminder, if the marriage relationship would be forbidden by karet, that's spiritual excision, or by one of the court-imposed death penalties, then there's no marriage. For example, a brother can't marry a sister. No one can marry a married woman. That's not even a marriage. We're talking about when it's a lav, don't do that. But if they did it, there's still a marriage. And as we're going to see today, we do encourage them to end that mistaken marriage. So here's Mishnah Beit. Ve'elu mutar liyevmehen. These are the women, the widows who are mutar. They're allowed to marry their surviving brothers of their deceased husband. Ve'asurut lebalehen. But they were not allowed to marry their first husband. For example, Kohen Gadol, the high priest, shekidesh et almana. He does kedushin, the first stage of marriage, with an almana, a widow. Now, a regular Kohen could marry a widow. The Kohen Gadol may not. V'yeshlo ach Kohen Hedyot. And he has a surviving brother who is a normal Kohen. So in this situation, yibum would be allowed, even though the original marriage was not allowed. Now here, it's only the first stage of marriage, because if the Kohen Gadol went through with his marriage and was living intimately with the almana, he would render her a halalah, which is a woman who is involved in a forbidden marriage, a full marriage after the chuppah with a Kohen. And a halalah is forbidden from marrying a different Kohen in the future. So here it was just kiddushin, the first stage of marriage. The Mishnah goes on with the next example, kosher shenasa halala, a kosher Kohen. He's fit to do the Kohanic ritual in the temple, but he marries a halala. Again, that's a woman who, through some sort of prior relationship with a Kohen, was rendered not permitted to marry a Kohen anymore. Yeshlo ach halal, but he has a brother from another mother, who is also a Kohen, but is not a fit to serve Kohen, a halal. So the halal could marry the halala. Another example is a Yisrael, a regular Jewish guy, shenosa mamzeret, and he's married a mamzeret, an illegitimate woman, a product of an illegitimate marriage, v'yeshlo ach mamzer, and he has a brother from another mother, and that relationship between his father and that other mother was an illegitimate relationship that renders his brother a mamzer. Or the converse case, mamzer shenosa bat Yisrael. So the original marriage was forbidden, v'yeshlo ach Yisrael, but his surviving brother would be mutar to marry her, the widow, in yibum. Mutarot liyivmehem v'asurot lebalehem. Here, the yibum relationship with the surviving brother is allowed. That's a legal marriage, but the original marriage was illegal. Now the Mishnah turns to the cases that are asurot la'elu, forbidden both in the original marriage and the yibum marriage. Kohen Gadol shenasat almana, he fully married a widow, v'yeshlo ach Kohen Gadol. And his surviving brother is also a Kohen Gadol, O Kohen Hedyot, or a regular Kohen, because of course the Kohen Gadol, as we explained, who fully marries an almana and they're living together, renders her a halala who cannot marry any Kohen. Or kosher, a Kohen kosher, a qualified Kohen, shenasa halala, he marries a woman who cannot marry a Kohen, v'yesh lo ach kosher, and his surviving brother also is a qualified Kohen, cannot marry a halala. Or Yisrael shenasa mamzeret, again, a regular Jewish guy marries the product of an illegitimate relationship, v'yesh lo ach Yisrael, and his brother is not a mamzer, but is a regular Jew, cannot marry the mamzeret, or vice versa, mamzer shenasa bat Yisrael, v'yesh lo ach mamzer. So both the original marriage and the yibum marriage would be forbidden, asurot la'elu v'la'elu. Ushar kol hanashim, the Mishnah includes the rest of women, the regular widow cases and yibum situations, mutar t'valehen livmehen. They are permitted to their original husband and to the surviving brothers in yibum, when there are not any of these illegal disqualifications and halalut for kohanim. Let's go into Mishnah Gimel. Shniot medivrei sofrim. Secondary arayot, secondary prohibited relationships that are the product of divrei sofrim, that's rabbinical legislation. Now, we talked about this back in the first chapter, that the rabbis extended, not just grandchildren, but great-grandchildren, and not just mothers-in-law, but the parents, the mothers of the mothers-in-law. They extended in all directions maternal relatives and, additional forbidden relationships on a rabbinical level. So the Mishnah explains a shnia lebal velo shnia yavam. If she was the rabbinically forbidden woman to the original husband, but not to the yavam, the surviving brother, asur lebal u'muter yavam. So too, like in the previous Mishnah, she would be forbidden in the original relationship, but she would be permitted to do yibum. Or vice versa, a shnia liyavam, she's related through a rabbinical prohibition to the yavam, velo shnia lebal, but not to her original husband. Asur leyavam, she cannot do yibum, umuteret lebal, but the original relationship was allowed. Shnia lezeh v'lezeh, if it's a rabbinical prohibition to both the original husband and the yavam, asur lezeh lezeh, it's forbidden in both relationships. Now the Mishnah turns to an interesting subject, that there's a rabbinic penalty if somebody entered into marriage of one of these shniot, one of these rabbinically forbidden marriages. Ein la ktuva. She's not entitled to the payment of money, which a woman normally receives through the ketuva, the marriage contract, if the marriage ends in the death of the husband or through divorce. Lo peirot, and not the fruits. This is when the husband ate the fruits of her field or sheared her sheep. She's not entitled to be paid back for this. Velo mezonot, the husband does not have to feed her. Velo veloyot, and not worn out dowry. If she brings dowry into the marriage that the husband's allowed to use, she doesn't necessarily get it back. The havlod kosher, even though there are these stringencies, if they have any children from a rabbinically forbidden marriage, this is a kosher child. He's fit to be a Kohen on the Mizbeach. There's no mamzerot, no issues like this. But we do force the husband to divorce this woman who's rabbinically forbidden to him. So we see the rabbis would exert pressure on the man through, social pressure, religious pressure, and there's also financial consequences to going through with a rabbinically forbidden marriage. And finally, the Mishnah contrasts this with biblically forbidden marriages. Almano lekohen gadol, a widow to the high priest, grusha halutza lekohen hedyot, a divorcee or halutze, marrying a regular kohen, umamzeret natina Yisrael, a product of an illegitimate relationship, or a natin, a givoni, marrying a regular mainstream Jewish person, or bat Yisrael natin and mamzer, or a female regular Jew marrying one of these natin and mamzer, yesh la ketuva. There is a ketuva. They are entitled to the marriage contract money when that marriage ends. And certainly they're entitled to the other financial rights that the rabbis took away for a rabbinically forbidden relationship. So it's a bit ironic. The rabbinically forbidden marriages were punished more stringently in certain sense than the biblically forbidden marriages. And the Gemara explains there's actually a logical reason to this, is that people generally don't treat rabbinic laws as strictly. They don't take it quite as seriously, and you understand people might fall in love, and it's, a distant family member, and it's only rabbinically a problem. So, love is blind. So the rabbis had to keep this in mind. This is human nature. People make excuses. It's not so bad. So the rabbis had to impose certain financial problems and social pressure so people would not continue such illegal marriages. Whereas if it's a biblically forbidden marriage and, there's a verse in the Torah that says not to do it, and the offspring of such a union is blemished and unable to be a Kohen, so that they don't have to exert so much social pressure on people not to do such a marriage. Yashar kochachem, good Shabbos.